for the parties and the fun and the tenants over the years to make sure that they're eliminated from the samples that they may end up finding from the killer. Greg, let me get you in on this. Having worked on the Amanda Knox case, it's eerie. I know it's different, but again, it involved a stabbing. It was very mysterious. DNA played a huge role in it. There was a small town. The people there were very impatient to get results, and Amanda was wrongfully convicted. I'm wondering if you see any parallels or any concerns in the way this case is progressing.
Yeah, there's a lot of eerie parallels, as you said, and really we have another case in Idaho that I worked on, which is the Angie Dodge murder, and Christopher Tapp that was incarcerated 20 years wrongfully for that murder. We helped the police find the man who confessed and who matches the DNA. In both of those cases, young women killed in their bedrooms, deep gashes to the neck, and a rush to find evidence to arrest the suspect. And we had huge mistakes made. And in the Angie Dodge murder in Idaho Falls, they took DNA from over 100 people. They didn't take DNA from Mr. Drips, who lived across the street, who could see into Angie's window from his house, who had no alibi for the time he was missing. The police interviewed him. They didn't have DNA. He could have been compared originally to it. So if I had any advice to the very hardworking people there on the ground, anytime they interview somebody, take a swab. And that can just quickly eliminate them, even if they're not considered the prime suspect. The problem
so
in these cases might be too early for all of us. The evidence, it's in 103 samples they took. Somebody's DNA is there. I'm going to guess that the perpetrator's DNA is there, and they'll be able to ID somebody.
It's hard to stab 4 people without getting some blood on your hand, and that becomes slippery, and it is easy to cut yourself, especially when some are fighting back, as we learned from the coroner. Listen, Larry, I've only got about 45 seconds left, but the cars that are parked out front, the kids' cars that are still left behind, I'm curious about the GPS information that might be contained in some of these newer vehicles. Wherever those kids drove to, whoever they visited prior to these killings, wouldn't you need to get those cars to a specialized garage so that you could actually take the GPS information from them to discover what the tracks were of the kids before they died?
I think that's absolutely correct. Again, we're talking digital evidence here. And along with the cars, there's the videotapes. They're looking for a video any place they can get it. Of course, it's not like New York City where you've got cameras on every building, so you can't escape being on video. But this in Moscow, they will try to get as much video as they can. They're going to go through the cell phones, their computers, their text messages, their
and they've already solicited all of the Ring doorbell cams. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so what would you like to say on behalf of your friend? Angle, Grace Anderson is joining us right now. She's a high school friend of Kaylee Goncalves and Zaina Kernodle, and she's joining us live from Boise, Idaho. First, so sorry for your loss. The pain of this, I can't even imagine. But we have the video of a couple of your friends. At least I know that Kaylee was there at the food truck. Do you know who all is in this video?
Just Maddie and Kaylee, yes.
Okay. And you were very close with Zaina. When was the last time you spoke with her?
I would say this summer. I mean, I would talk to her over Snapchat every once in a while, but this summer was like the last time I really got to talk to her.
Do you have any guesses as to who could have done this?
No, that's up to the authorities to disclose with everybody.
Okay. Have you been in touch with the authorities? Have police questioned you and other friends, hopefully trying to get some more info and pieces together?
No, but again, like I said, I'm mostly here just to speak on behalf of Zaina and Kaylee and honoring them, as well as Ethan and Maddie.
Well, what would you...
So until further notice of the authorities...
Go ahead, I apologize.
Just until authorities have disclosed what has happened, I know no more information than anybody else does.
Okay, so what would you like to say on behalf of your friends?
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how to start something like this. And I want to preference that Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan were not just victims, but were family, friends, and loved ones to not only myself, but all of those affected. I'm saddened to be speaking on behalf of them today, but hope to share some of the good because I was lucky enough to have known these two beautiful girls, despite the fact that they were so much more than what my words can describe of them. But Xana was just such a light, and she was lively, tenderhearted, so bubbly, and a humorous girl that I think that we could, all of our friends and family could second. As far as Kaylee, I didn't know her as well as Xana, but she was someone that when I went to the university was always checking in on me, making sure I felt welcomed and seen.
Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders. This is the beginning of the case, actually, the first couple of weeks. And this is what law enforcement gathered. 113 pieces of physical evidence collected and taken to ISP, crime lab. Approximately 4,000 crime scene photographs taken. That's a lot. Developed multiple three-dimensional scans of the resident. If they took the dimensional scans of the residents, why did the FBI come back and take it now, a month ago? That's strange. Is it because they don't have a solid case? Allegedly, ISP forensic science scientists and technicians worked hundreds of hours. 488 digital media submissions have been submitted to the FBI link. And then the rest is the rumor controls. It's been a year and a month, and people are still, including me, going on rumors, speculations, observations, because they haven't given us anything else. I'm scared if Brian Koberger walks free and he did not commit it. Just an example, how are they going to find the real suspects who did this? It's going to be a shame. So I guess they're going to stick to Brian Koberger. And it could be framed for these unlivings. I don't believe there's a good motive with Brian Christopher Koberger. I'm not saying that he hasn't done it or he's not involved, but there's too many reasonable doubts in my mind. And it's strange what he was doing there that night. But that doesn't place him in the scene of the crime. I wonder what the detective saw out of this window. That is Bethany Funke's window. It's strange. Is that why Bethany Funk is an important witness? She has exculpatory evidence in this case. So Bethany Funk was at home. She is awake, allegedly. I think this was the incident of the red Mustang that was found outside a street, St. Augustine. Jack Showalter was seen taking a red Mustang, allegedly. If you watch the grub truck video and look at the window or the opposite, the reflection of the window, you'll see him going towards the right after the girls left, and he jumps into a red car. Many people are saying it's a red Mustang. Did he crash it somewhere? So Bethany Funk lives right under the living room. That's interesting. Is that why she has exculpatory evidence? That makes sense. Look at where the detectives are looking, upstairs. And Bethany's room is downstairs. And let's remember the good vibes frame in the living room had the fingerprints, which is one of the unidentified male DNAs. Started to make sense. That's what I love, going back to the beginning of every case. These are the next door neighbors. Look at the girl. She looks so shocked. The glove, the other unidentified male DNAs. Did something happen to Eaton and Zana over there? Or was it Brian Kohlberger's car? Allegedly. I think someone came in through this window. There's 6 people from the forensic team. This is one of the explanations about somebody who was at the crime scene before the police were called, or anonymous person from Facebook, explanation of unconscious call. I saw the comment on Facebook and I wanted to share it here. Basically, it clarifies everything and to stop people from speculating about the survivors. Supposedly, I mislike everything that starts with supposedly. Supposedly, a few days after the murder, someone was asking questions on the victim's past Instagram posts about the survivors. 2 of the people were at the house with the roommates when the call was made, quickly came to their defense. And this is supposedly once again, what they said. Keep in mind, this is all alleged. 2 people who claimed to be at the house with the roommates when the bodies were discovered quickly came to the surviving roommate's defense and wrote that the roommates woke up, went upstairs to the kitchen and noticed that the sliding glass door was open, and it was during that time they saw Eaton, I guess. It starts like this. You can read it. The roommates woke up, went upstairs to the kitchen, and noticed the sliding glass door was open. And it was during that time they discovered Eaton. They didn't say where he was found on the floor. Pay attention. Eaton was found on the floor, allegedly, and I've heard that many times. There's always a dispute of where Eaton, may rest in peace, was found. Behind the door, on the bed, but I've always heard on the floor. But I'm sure it's on the floor, may rest in peace. But he was blocking the door some way. Was it between the room and the corridor, allegedly? I don't mean to be so direct by asking the question or observing that, because unfortunately it's part of the investigation of what could have happened. We don't have the facts, and we can see that this case isn't a solid case. We just want justice for these victims. If Brian Koberger has done it, then he deserves his sentence or whatever's coming his way. But if he hasn't done it, and if touch DNA is all that they have, I'm sure they have data and civilians and other things, but I don't think they have enough that shows Brian going inside the house, committing the 4 horrific crimes, leaving no red liquid or anything behind at the crime scene. Doesn't make sense. In the beginning, it was always said that the crimes happen between 3 to 4 a.m. Pay attention to that. So the roommates discovered quickly, came to the surviving roommate's defense and wrote that the roommates woke up, went upstairs to the kitchen, and noticed the sliding glass door was open. It was during that time they discovered Eaton. They didn't say where he was found on the floor. Pay attention. What's obsession? You're the only one who says Eaton was found on the bed. They didn't say where he was found on the floor, but that it was horrific, that both girls went into shock and ran out of the house. One of the roommates fainted and the other was beyond hysterical and not making any sense. Their frantic actions while coming out of the house caught the attention of people walking past. The people responded on the victim's IG claimed to be 2 of those people. Then the person continues to say how the 911 call was made on the roommate's phone and by someone else, and the call went out for an unconscious person. While the bystander was on the phone with 911, the other roommate was hysterical, trying to explain that something was wrong with Eaton. May he rest in peace. By this point, several more people had stopped to see what was happening, and one of them went into the house to see if they could help him. That is called tampering with evidence. The crime scene was already tampered with in a severe manner. There were multiple people in the yard at that time, and those people began contacting their friends that someone in the house was badly hurt. There were multiple people in the yard at that time, and those people began contacting their friends that someone in the house was badly hurt. Someone called Eaton's brother, Hunter, to tell him something was wrong with his brother because he lived close to the house, and someone called one of the other victims' boyfriends. He was also Eaton's best friend. That means that is Maddie's boyfriend, Jake, allegedly, I believe. They didn't go on into details on if either of those boys had arrived before the paramedics did, but it did kind of sounded like they did, obviously, because Hunter spoke to 911, I believe. I heard he came, they called Sigma Kai and Hunter came. I heard the other Hunter came, Eaton's brother. This Hunter, I'm sure, was sleeping in the basement, allegedly. He was always on the police cams. And the police was knocking the door, either in the front door, answering the front door, or at the backyard, answering the backyard, the kitchen sliding door. If his DNA was on the sliding door and the windows, he's going to get away because he was one of the party people, one of the people who used to hang around there. I didn't see much emotions with him, honestly. That's my opinion. The person goes on to say they didn't go into details of what kind of injuries Eaton had suffered. May he rest in peace. They also didn't say if anyone went to check on the other roommates before the paramedics arrived, but it was somewhat implied that someone had. The only details they gave about the scene itself was that it was incomprehensible. Bloody. While those people were in the house checking on Eaton and possibly the other roommates, the paramedics arrived to a very chaotic scene, believing they were then to assess an unconscious person outside, but were redirected to go inside to help someone who was hurt. Are these people joking? They weren't people who were hurt. There were 4 people unalived. I'm sure they can see the red liquid because the officer said that he smelled the strong smell of red liquid. So imagine how many people already went inside the house. Let's say both of the roommates ran out. One was hysterical, allegedly. The other one fainted, I guess. So people found it all right to just walk upstairs and see the scene, obviously because the roommates were hysterical. And the roommates were awake texting each other. Many people tampered with the crime scene. This doesn't make sense. This is, in fact, very serious because if the prosecution doesn't turn over the evidence, that is breaching the Brady-Giglow law. They have to turn in every evidence they have. I don't understand why it's taking so long. Is it because touch DNA and the car data is the only thing they have? But there's no motive, there's no proper DNA, I personally believe. Okay, so the crime scene was bloody. Now imagine that. And they're trying to say BK didn't leave any proper evidence besides touch DNA? That doesn't make sense. Obviously, 4 people were unalived. Trigger warning. So there's going to be a lot of body fluids, of everything. Liquid, red liquid, everything. While those people were in the house checking and eating, and possibly the other roommates, the paramedics arrived to a very chaotic scene, believing they were there to assist an unconscious person outside, but were redirected to go inside to help someone who was hurt. What was going on? So there were many people. Because let's not forget, the chief Fry said that there were many people talking on the phone and surroundings when they called the 911 operator. So this whole crime scene was tampered, in fact more like a cleanup.
Locating the victims, and this morning saying Kaylee Gonzalez's dog was also found unharmed at the home. That dog, seen in this TikTok video taken just weeks ago, showing Kaylee, Madison, and Shanna inside the house.
There's no forced entry, and there's no dog barking. Do we think it was someone that they knew?
We don't know if the dog was barking or not, so that's part of the ongoing investigation to figure out kind of what occurred. It would be difficult to speculate whether or not it was a known suspect or a total stranger.
The coroner revealing that while Kaylee, Madison Mogan, Shanna Kernodle, and Chapin were also likely asleep at the time of the attack, there was evidence of defensive wounds. DNA samples are being tested by the state lab now. Police say evidence shows the students may have been targeted, but investigators are not elaborating. More than a week after the fatal stabbings of 4 University of Idaho students, still no answers as to who did this and why.
Moscow's always been a very safe community. In some ways, this took our innocence.
The families of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Shanna Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin hoping for justice as police in the small town of Moscow team up with the FBI to follow any leads. Investigators revealing they were told in interviews that Kaylee had mentioned a possible stalker.
We have followed up looking at specific time frames in specific areas of town. So far, we have not been able to corroborate it, but we're not done looking into that piece of information.
More than evidence, 1,000 tips, 150 interviews, and hundreds of hours of police work, but authorities say they have no suspects or murder weapon.
I just didn't feel like it was very real. We don't usually lock our doors.
The University of Idaho stepping up security and ramping up police presence.
Nothing I can say will make this better, but please know that we stand with you in wanting whoever is responsible captured and brought to justice.
For now, school officials advising students to travel in pairs out of an abundance of caution. The flyers went up on Sunday, hastily taped to businesses, cafes, even street poles, asking the public for help.
Someone's murdered child in our community is everyone's murdered child in our community.
I found this to be interesting. I looked it up, and the University of Idaho has a large ROTC program consisted of Army, Air Force, and Navy. I would start looking at the people in the Navy ROTC, as the would cover the Navy and Marine Corps. It's not much, but it's a place to start. Somebody put this on Facebook too. These are all allegedlys. I really think the person came from the window near the sliding door. This is another picture of the forensics taking pictures. This is where I believe everything happened. Taylor Avenue, Kings Road, Queens Road, around those areas. That's why Maddie's coat was found in the bushes, allegedly. Those 3 young boys and Said were stopped at Banfield. The 5-6 figures were running. A lot was happening. It couldn't all be coincidence, and the 4chan predicted it within 19 minutes. No phones, no Wi-Fi. They didn't want to connect to the Wi-Fi. It makes sense. Was Kaylee maybe walking her dog? We heard allegedly about that in the beginning. I'm not sure if it's true. I wonder if there was a party in the house. If Ethan and Zana continued partying in the house and invited some people, and something went wrong. Because if Dylan is telling the truth, she said she heard noises upstairs. Although I don't believe her. But they're looking up towards the living room and BF's room. Why would they change the first explanation? The police said that the two roommates and a pet dog were on the ground level. This is from Fox. Although the dog was up in Katie's room. Yeah, it was from Fox. This is the second page. I wonder how the police knew it was a targeted attack. Did the suspect leave something behind? Besides the knife sheet? Did they write something maybe on the wall? Or note? Something must have led them, or the pattern of unliving, something must have led the officers to say it was a targeted attack. Either the 4 students were the targets, or it was the resident that was the